There are two joys in table tennis: one is the physical exercise and good technique. The other is winning matches by using your brain, strategy, and tactics. For amateur players, understanding and using variation in table tennis is one of the most critical skills to master. There are several types of variation. Let's start with creating variation in topspin rallies. I'll teach you 3 methods for topspin and 3 for backspin. The first and simplest method is actively changing the placement of your shots. To do this effectively, visualize the table in 3 sections, not just 2. This makes changing direction easier. Here's a tactical pattern to practice: a wide backhand shot, followed by a switch to the forehand side. Second tactic: start by attacking the middle. If their backhand is strong, switch to their forehand. If their forehand is strong, attack their backhand. Third tactic: if your opponent has a very strong backhand rally, initiate with a shot to their forehand, then quickly attack their backhand. Let me demonstrate. The first variation: serve wide to the backhand, then change placement and go down the line. After serving to the middle, if they favor a forehand return, your second ball should attack their forehand corner. If they favor a backhand return, you should pressure their backhand corner. The third pattern: attack their forehand, then switch to their backhand. This is the first key to rallies: variation in placement. The second type of variation is changing the rhythm or tempo. This means mixing fast and slow shots. For instance, after your serve, you can play a fast shot, followed by a slow one, and then accelerate again. Your slow ball shouldn't be a simple push, it should be a short drop shot with friction to keep it low, setting up your next fast attack. If you just float a high, slow ball, you're giving them an easy attack. Often, against an opponent who plays close to the table, you want to pin them back with deep shots. However, if they start backing away from the table during a rally, that's your cue to play a short ball to their forehand. When your opponent is pushed far back, a well-placed short ball will pull them out of position. Remember, the more power you put into the ball, the easier it is for a good opponent to use your own pace against you. So, against a close-to-the-table player, aim for the baseline to push them back, which doesn't always mean using full power. Against a player far from the table, you must mix in short drop shots with deep drives to the baseline. Anytime you force your opponent to move their feet, you increase their chance of making an error. The third type of variation is changing the spin. For example, in the match between Sun Ying-sha and Hana Goda, Sun struggled because she couldn't match the timing of Goda's backhand. Goda's backhand is unconventional. A player like Wang Manyu would typically engage in a fast backhand-to-backhand topspin rally. But Goda mixes with rips and punches, creating a difficult rhythm that's very uncomfortable for her opponent. In a match situation, it's incredibly difficult to adjust to this and break free from her control. Goda often initiates an attack and then follows up with a quick punch block at the peak of the bounce, creating immense tempo variation and putting her opponent on the defensive. Her forehand is similar, she alternates between pure hitting and spinny loops, and this variation between impact and friction is extremely hard to deal with. If you can't do this yet, you need to practice it. Don't just trade topspins. You must learn to combine punch blocks with spinny shots to disrupt your opponent's rhythm. Even a player like Sun Ying-sha, with world-class adjustment skills, struggled to adapt to this in the match. The reason she aggressively used her forehand from the backhand corner was to impart heavy spin, making it much harder for Goda to continue her flat blocking game. The backhand is different. Even if you add more spin with your backhand, an opponent can often continue to punch block it. However, a powerful forehand loop is much harder to block flatly and is more likely to go off the table. This is because the larger forehand stroke mechanics allow you to generate significantly more spin. So, in a rally, remember there's no rule that says you must always counter topspin. If you can combine fast drives, blocks, changes in placement, and spinny loops in your rallies, your opponent will be extremely uncomfortable. You must actively create variation to seize the initiative. Don't just fall into your opponent's rhythm and play their game. Now, let's talk about backspin. Variation against backspin is even more crucial because it's the most deceptive. Let's start from the basics, assuming you can't loop yet. We'll focus on creating variation with your push. The push is a very common stroke for amateur players. For variation in your push, the first element is, again, placement. Why do you always get attacked after your push? It's often because you're pushing to the middle of your opponent's backhand, making it easy for them to loop. To effectively move your opponent to their forehand, you must push the ball wide, close to the sideline. If you only push to the middle area, even with a wide angle, they will have time to get there and attack. You must push diagonally wide towards the sideline. That extreme angle cannot be covered with a single step. Furthermore, when you change placement to their forehand, you must contact the ball early. Don't wait for it, or you'll play right into their timing. To change direction effectively, first create a wide angle, and second, accelerate into the shot. Acceleration here means taking the ball early, contacting it on the rise. This makes it very difficult for them to simply push the ball back. The key principle: create a wide angle, then accelerate to change placement. Second point, don't try to attack when you're in a stable pushing rally. The opponent is adding heavy spin, and if you try to loop suddenly, you'll likely hit it into the net. Therefore, you must force them to move before you attack. For example, after 3 pushes to their backhand, surprise them with a push to the middle. That ball, where they are forced to move unexpectedly, is the easiest one for you to attack. The best time to prepare your attack is when they are moving forward or sideways to make their push. Third, your push itself can have spin variation. You can execute a heavy backspin push and a no-spin push. After a series of heavy pushes, a sudden no-spin push will often produce a high return that you can smash. A no-spin push isn't a simple block. You use a similar motion to a heavy push, but you guide the ball forward with less friction. When you want to attack, or if you're losing a pushing battle, constantly adding more spin is a mistake. The return will just come back with even heavier spin. Instead, try guiding a no-spin ball over. This will give you a simpler return, which you can then follow up with a heavy spin push to create spin variation. If your opponent handles your backspin well, try giving them a topspin ball, followed immediately by a backspin ball. This change will often cause an error. This is because the technique and feel required for topspin and backspin are completely different. The question is, can your opponent make that adjustment instantly? So, you can vary the placement, the speed, and as we just discussed, the spin. Then, you look for your chance to attack. If I execute a very heavy push, I should anticipate a heavy return and prepare for a high, spinny loop. If I send a no-spin push, I should prepare for a less spinny return and get ready to power loop it. Your follow-up depends on the spin you imparted. Since backspin rallies are slower, you can also introduce variation by using a short push or drop shot. This doesn't have to be a perfect, 2-bounce short push like the pros use. You can mix long pushes with a short push to the middle. This variation in depth will constantly move your opponent. Don't just push mindlessly. Try to take the ball earlier, use your opponent's pace, and absorb pace. By doing this, you can force a half-long return. When they step in, that's your chance to loop. Or when they step in, you can push it long again. A great tactic is to serve short to the forehand, and when they push to your forehand, you attack with a quick loop down the line. If they push to your backhand, you can take the ball on the rise and deep push to their wide backhand. This play is very difficult to handle. By taking the ball early, you can follow their return with another loop to the wide angle. On crucial points, use this tactic. Your long pushes should be fast, quick jabs taken early. There are 2 joys in table tennis. One is the physical exercise and good technique. The other is winning matches by using your brain, strategy, and tactics. To create variation when attacking backspin, you must develop 2 key abilities. First is the ability to consistently loop any backspin ball onto the table with heavy spin. This means no matter where the ball is, you can land a consistent, spinny loop. It's about safety and spin, not necessarily power. The second ability is the power loop or kill shot. The power loop is your surprise, finishing shot. A power loop isn't just a regular shot. It's an all-out attack designed to win the point outright with maximum power, speed, and precise placement. That's a true power loop. So, you must first develop these 2 abilities. One is your consistent loop, and the other is your kill shot that you can execute with full power and quality. You might miss this kill shot sometimes, but you must have the confidence to generate that power and quality. Next, your loop must be effective both cross-court and down the line. Many players can only loop cross-court consistently, and they're afraid to practice other directions because they want to protect their current level. But you can only improve when you push past your comfort zone and develop new skills. For every shot, you should be the one actively controlling the placement and creating variation. Once you have the ability to move your opponent, you can start playing tactically by reading their position. For example, if they push and remain stationary, you can loop to the wide angle. If they anticipate your wide shot and cover that angle, you can attack down the line. Ultimately, your loop game comes down to two things: the consistent loop and the power loop. When practicing your consistent loop, your goal is to be able to adjust your stroke and power to land the ball anywhere. You need to learn how to adjust everything yourself, using 50% power, the size of your backswing, and your racket angle. Your first priority is consistency. You have to figure out through practice what technique allows you to be the most consistent. You also need to identify which balls are opportunities for a power loop. When you have both consistency and a kill shot, your opponent will fear you. For my consistent loop, I use a more compact stroke, shortening my backswing and focusing on late-stage acceleration. My contact point must be at the peak of the bounce. With this method, I know I can be consistent. You need to know your own game.